Hello in 93. In this video I'd like to go into a Jewish concept that I think is a great concept, and it's that we are all partners in creation with God. Genesis 1:1, Bereshit, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It is a Jewish concept that we are still in the beginning. In the beginning is now. God is still creating the world that will be. And we, made in the image and likeness of God, are partners in creation with God. We're helping God create this world and bring it about. The whole idea of the Messianic age, and some Jews are still waiting for a Messiah that's going to bring about this Messianic age. But the majority of Jews in the U.S. are Reformed Jews, and Reformed Jews as a group discount the Messiah. I mean, there's been many false messiahs over the years. They discount this idea that one man is going to come, he's going to become a ruler in Israel, and that he's going to help bring about this Messianic age, and rather focus on the other part, that we're all helping bring about this Messianic age. That we're all partners in creation with God, that God is still creating, and so are we. And I got this book, and I had to read it for my conversion. I had to read 4 books, and they gave me a list of the books, and I've read 2, and I'm about, I'd say about halfway through my 3rd one. But this book right here, To Life by Harold S. Kushner, A Celebration of Jewish Being and Thinking. It's a really good book. And in this book, there's something that I want to bring out. And it goes into this. And it says, what is the biblical equivalent of kryptonite, the substance that limits God's power? I find 2 areas. God does not suspend laws of nature, and God gives human beings free will to choose good or evil, life or death, even as He urges us, but cannot compel us to choose life. Consider, for example, the passage in Deuteronomy 25-7. When the Israelites are mustered for war, the leaders are to say to them, any man who has built a new house and not yet moved into it, betrothed a wife and not yet married her, planted a vineyard and not yet drunk its wine, let him go home and be safe, lest he die in battle and never complete what he has become. Now, if God controls everything that happens in the world, why not let those men go into battle and count on God to bring them home safely? In fact, why not put them in the front lines, relying on God's mercy and sense of fairness to protect them? Apparently, even the book of Deuteronomy, which more than any other biblical text speaks of God's rewarding the righteous and punishing the wicked, recognizes that some things are out of God's control. Laws of nature are one form of biblical kryptonite. Nature may be beautiful and orderly, but is morally blind. Falling rocks and speeding bullets obey laws of physics, irrespective of what harm they may do to innocent people in their path. The sages of the Talmud put it this way: if a man steals seeds and plants them, it would be morally fitting if the stolen seeds would refuse to grow. But the world of nature follows its course and the seeds grow. If a woman is raped, it would be morally better for her not to become pregnant and have to bear the rapist's child. That is not how God wants children to be conceived. But the world of nature is not moral. And sometimes the unfortunate victim does become pregnant because laws of nature do not always carry out God's will. The other source of kryptonite consists of human beings exercising their free will in selfish, destructive ways. Without that freedom to choose, as we have said, people could not do good unless they could also be bad. And in the process, innocent people get hurt, and we must believe that God is as outraged by it as you and I are. Now, I think that ties in well with us being partners in creation. Because God is trying to create this perfect world where people live in peace and harmony. And He's put us here with free will and asked us, help create this world. Make the world you want to live in. Make the best world you can make. And since we are partners and not slaves, we have free will to make this world. Or we have free will to make hell on earth, such as Hitler. the Inquisition, and all this other stuff. So the responsibility for creating this world really falls on us. We are responsible for the world we live in. We are responsible to make it a better place. We can't blame God when we don't. And I think this really goes into something Crowley said. Well, actually, it's in the Book of the Law. It says, "I am alone. There is no God where I am." And the old comment was the atheism of God. Allah is an atheist. He owns no Allah. To admit God is to look up to God and so not be God, the curse of duality. But the new comment, I think, is a lot more insightful. This refers to the spiritual experience of identity. When one realizes one's truth, there is no room for any other conception. But then he goes on. It also means that the God idea must go with other relics of the fear born of ignorance into the limbo of savagery. I speak of the idea of God as generally understood. God being something, not ourselves, that makes for righteousness, as Matthew Arnold Victorianically phrased his definition. The whiskered wowser. While this ingrained conviction that self is unrighteous, it is the heritage of the whip, the brand of the born slave. So obviously what this verse is saying and what Crowley was saying in the commentary is this idea that we're nothing, that God is everything, that we have no responsibility for what we do. We're just weak flesh. And God has all the power, and God has a responsibility in this. The devil made me do it. Or I'm just too weak, God. You have to do it for me. I am alone. There is no God where I am. In other words, the responsibility is mine. Everything I want God to do for me, I've got to do for myself. And I think that's a beautiful way of saying it. Just, I am alone. There is no God where I am. In other words, I've got to do it. I can't rely upon God to do it. It's my responsibility. And it really ties into something else Crowley said. And he said this in Magic Without Tears. Shameful confession, while my own Shaylas, or so it is rather incredibly reported to me, said recently, self-discipline is a form of restriction. That, you remember, is the word of sin. Of all the utter rubbish. Anyhow, he was a center of pestilence for discussing the book at all. About 90% of Thelema, at a guess, is nothing but self-discipline. One is only allowed to do anything and everything so as to have more scope for exercising that virtue. In other words, God isn't going to strike you down if you do this. God isn't going to strike you down if you do that. There's going to be no bolt of lightning from heaven. But you have to exercise self-discipline. Why? Concentrate, and this is him continuing, concentrate on thou hast no right but to do thy will. The point is that any possible act is to be performed if it is a necessary factor in that equation of your will. So your divine purpose, the reason you're here, where you fit in into this world, if that act doesn't enhance that, if that act doesn't enable your divine purpose, the nature of your soul, the nature of your being, if it doesn't enable and enhance that, don't do it. And at the end he says, of course there must be certain courses of action which, generally speaking, will be right for pray well everybody. Some, per contra, will be generally barred as interfering with another's equal right. So of course you can't interfere with other people's freedoms. You can't trample their rights, that type of thing. But I really think this is a beautiful concept. That each and every one of us is responsible. You are responsible for your environment, for your life. And I mean, you can say, oh, well, I didn't have any responsibility in this horrible thing happening to me. And you may very well be right. I mean, bad things happen to good people. You have free will, but so does the next guy over, and he may not be as altruistic as you are. And he may do something really crappy to you. Or this chain of events may happen just by coincidence, and all of a sudden something really bad happens to you. Some guy's late for work. He's running too fast down your street. Your dog is out playing in the yard. He sees a squirrel in the park across the street. He rushes across, and this guy hits him because he was going too fast. And you could say, well, you should have had a fence. But in some places, you can't have fences. You know, homeowners association and crap. Yeah, stuff like that. But that really wasn't your fault. You know, you can't hedge around every little thing that could happen to you. You'd be a basket case. So that really wasn't your fault. And now you have no dog. You've seen your dog killed. It was horrible. That's not your fault. And I understand that. You know, bad things happen to good people. And while you can't control that, you can control how you react to this. What type of person this action makes you. Whether you turn this evil experience into something good, into something beneficial, whether you learn from it, whether you say, you know, I'm not getting another outside dog because I can't put up a fence because of the homeowners association. I don't have enough backyard for a fence. I'm just not getting another outside dog. I'll get an inside dog, or I'll get a cat for inside the house, or a bird or something. You know, you can use it for something like that. But how you react to something that happens to you defines who you are. The act that happens to you is unfortunate. But there are plenty of actions that happen to us that we are responsible for. And we are always responsible for our reactions to the incidents. We have personal responsibility every step of the way. Even when these seemingly unrelated things happen to us, we still have responsibility. How do I act? How do I react to this? What do I learn from this? Where do I go from here? And we can't put this off on God. We can't put it off on Satan. We really have to say, this is my responsibility. If we walk past somebody begging for food every single day, our praying to God does nothing. Why would God do anything for this person when he sent you and you didn't do anything? You are responsible. You are God's hands in this world. And it is up to you to make this world a better place. Don't pray to keep kids off drugs. Do something to keep kids off drugs. Actually act. Don't try to abdicate your responsibility because God gave you that responsibility. He made you a partner in creation with him. And it is your responsibility to make this world a place you want to live in. Thank you in 93.